Well, I'm just sharing my thoughts on the second reading from the Analects 17:2. The Master said, "By nature, people are similar. They diverge as a result of practice." I'm a philosophy teacher usually. I teach intellectual heritage to have for a long time, but um, my degree is in philosophy, and most of my teaching is philosophy teaching. And I like this a lot. I mean, maybe it's a simple thought, maybe it's an observation which is obvious that by nature people are similar. Human beings, I would say that that's true. If there is such a thing as human nature, or if there is such a thing as people, individuals having a nature, then I would agree. There are some outstanding people. Right? There are some people who have great gifts naturally of intelligence or athletic ability or things like that. But when it comes to, I suppose, our personalities, it's really not a gift of nature. It is, as Confucius says, a result of practice, a habit. We do differ from each other. Um, and I think that the simple observation that the most important ways in which we differ from each other are as a result of our different habits, and our different habits are the result of our different practices, is something to keep in mind. Um, and it has all sorts of implications too. Maybe it wasn't as obvious, or it wasn't didn't seem as obvious to ancient peoples. I don't know. That is, that human nature is pretty much the raw material of a human being, and that what that human being really, in important ways, turns out to be is not a gift of birth, but rather what they make of themselves or what the world makes of them through uh, their habits, and that we essentially are we're all equal and we're all not equal, right? I mean, you meet people who are really, really impressive, and they didn't get that way by birth. They got that way through work. And sometimes you meet people who are not so impressive, and they weren't unimpressive by birth. They're unimpressive because they didn't do the kind of work to turn themselves into impressive people. So, I don't know. I thought that was a pretty interesting observation. And it's followed by another simple and interesting observation, 17:3. The master said, "Only the very wise and the very stupid do not change." Well, it I like that thought too, because it seems understandable and maybe obvious that someone who is very wise doesn't need to change, and someone who is very stupid is not willing to change, and that almost all of us fall somewhere in between the very wise and the very stupid, so we're constantly changing. If we're afraid of changing, then we're afraid of learning, and we're afraid of doing kind of things that we would need to do to become better. So change is good if we're humble, and that does seem to be a big aspect of this book, is to be humble. So it's just a couple of thoughts that I was impressed by in the second reading.